Okay, thank you, Joseph. Welcome to everyone who's here. In case you're curious, it does not matter if you take parts 1 and 2 in any particular order. I realized I listed part 2 first. That just happens to us sometimes. So you know I am an active clerk in Becker, Minnesota. That's located in Sherburne County, right between St. Cloud and Elk River. I've been the clerk here for 9 years, and we have a 5-supervisor board. Yes, I do have my own deputy clerk who does work here as well, and we run with a deputy treasurer too. So let's go ahead and get started. One note before we go too far, annual meeting and election postings. Those vary based on your township size and location. Given what I just told you, I'm in Sherburne County. We are in the metro. Sometimes I will give a little bit bigger posting than what's required. You can always check the MAC calendar. I will try to present the way that the majority of townships need to follow. But if you have any questions and you don't get a chance to ask it here, just contact one of the trainers and we're more than happy to help you. So let's get going. So biggest question, are publishing and posting the same thing? No, they are not. You need to understand the difference. Basically, posting, you just hang it up. You take a thumbtack, you take a piece of tape, wherever your main posting place in the township is, you just hang it up. That's a pretty simple thing to do. We all have to do it quite often. Whereas publishing means that you have to use an approved newspaper. We'll talk more about how to tell if your newspaper is approved in just a minute. So posted notices, you may have something that looks like this. The posted notices, 1 is required, 3 are recommended, and no, you cannot use your website as the sole posting location. With your posted notices, see how this particular example is one from a township not around here, but it's just a simple box with a glass door. Some townships will do something like posted on the window of the main door. Wherever your posting location is, it has to be visible 24 hours a day. So you want to give it some thought. I know one clerk I talked to had designed this arm that they could move to the window and then pull it back, but then they had to make sure and scoop out the snow and keep the area cleaned off so people could go read what those notices are. Now, I put this in here because I can't emphasize it enough. A lot of people are like, but we have a website. Can't we use that? It cannot be the only posted location. You have to have a board somewhere. It could be a post in the middle of the field as long as all the electors have been notified this is what it is. All right. So next up is published notice. Published notice must be in an approved qualified newspaper. If they're not qualified, they are to tell you. I just put a link on the screen and this will be in the materials that you download as well. You can find out if your newspaper is official by going to the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. Any official newspaper will always send you an affidavit after your publication. There's a sample there. It's not always going to look just like that, but it will be signed and notarized. It will have a copy of the text that you put in there. So you want to look for that. That is a requirement for these qualified newspapers. The next thing to keep in mind with published notices is you have got to determine when to send in your notice. This is one of the easiest things to catch most of us up on. Not all of us have daily papers. Most of us don't. A lot of us only have a weekly paper. So you've got to figure out, when do I have to send my notice? Well, keep in mind the deadline for published notice needs to fall. You've got to make sure you're published by that deadline. So in this case, let's use an example. Let's say the 26th is when you need to have it published, but you go, hey, my newspaper comes out on a Saturday. So you know you can't publish it on the 26th. You've got to back it up. You find out it's the 23rd, but when are the notices due? Well, back it up some more, and that's the 20th. So you've got to send your notice in on the 20th, even though it's not due out until the 26th. What we usually recommend is start off your year, look through the calendar dates, and back up and redo your newspaper at that point. And then if something happens during the year, and this just happened to me, so this is why it's kind of fresh on my mind, our newspaper went under. So the board at their next meeting, which is Monday night, is going to have to declare a new local news or a new newspaper. Luckily, we had somebody step up and they've got it dedicated as a legal newspaper. So we're going to use another different one in the area. But if there isn't one in your area, you still have to publish, even if nobody in your township's going to see it. None of us like that law, but that is the law. So publishing, always look ahead. Take the time to plan. I cannot stress this enough. If you don't take the time to plan, you're going to not have things published or posted at the right time. Okay? Most clerks will go through the MAC calendar and the Secretary of State calendar, and some of the local units also have a calendar that they hand out. So there's lots of places to look for your dates. One of the bright ideas, I love this, of all the things when I first started being a clerk, this is the one that I found most helpful, is the clerk said, start a binder with everything, and I just started throwing things into my binder for what month it is. Because as clerks, we do a lot of stuff repetitively. It's always in February that we have one report due. It's always the end of March we have another report due. Put your samples in there. Put the dates in there. And then when you're getting ready for a meeting, go a month or two ahead. And that way you're going to keep a memory of what you've got to get done. So just thought I would share that with you. So any questions on publishing, posting? This is a pretty simple but common thing. One of the easiest things to screw up though too. So if you've got any questions, use that Q&A box. Otherwise, I'm going to keep moving on, all right? So we'll look at meeting types next. Publishing, posting, we're going to talk about the requirements with them. Stop and ask questions as we go through this part. So there's two main types of meetings. You've got your regular meetings. Those are your monthly board meetings. We all know what those are. We do them all the time. You've got your special meetings, and those are the ones that take a little bit more time to talk about. So I've got to look at a question here that says how often to publish. If you think of it, please type what you want to publish. Usually if I don't answer it, retype. If you're publishing a meeting, you're going to take and publish according to the statutes around it. If it's your regular meeting schedule, you don't need to publish that at all. You just need to post that once a year and make sure it stays posted at your posting location. If that's not the meeting you're talking about, let me know. We're going to talk about all the different special types here in just a minute. So you've got regular and special. Moving forward, once you know you've got the two types, the next question you're going to ask yourself is who's making the decisions? Is it the town board making the decisions, or is this one that the electors are going to come in, that the townspeople are going to come in, the residents of your townships? You want to make sure and keep this straight, all right? Because even though the grammar is very similar, a town board meeting is much different than a town meeting. A lot of times I'll refer to a town meeting as a meeting of the electors. That way I keep it straight in my mind, because I remember when I first started, I was like, yeah, we need another town meeting. No, we needed a town board meeting, not a town meeting. So once you remember who's going to vote, is it the supervisors who are going to vote and decide, or is it the residents who are going to vote and make the decisions? If it's the regular town board meetings, those are the ones we have all the time. There's no special publishings or anything if it's a typical town board meeting. Now, the continuation of the annual meeting. We'll talk about that. I will answer that live in just 1 second. So when the supervisors are voting at a regular meeting, we're not going to worry. We just have our regular posting. We stick it up. All 12 meetings are listed for the year. There is a document, TM 21,000, that goes with special town board meetings. I will not be able to cover everything in that document. Again, it's TM 2100. You can get that on the MAT Information Library. The other types, residents are voting or deciding. The regular annual meeting, that is document TM 6000. You're going to want to write these down, because every time we have an annual meeting, it's only once a year, we have to look at that and remember our posting and publishing. Now, if you're going to continue your annual meeting and recess it, then you only have to post it. That's all that's required. The publishing is optional, all right? I know that a lot of people believe that you've got to publish a recessed annual meeting multiple times, but as long as you have stated before you recess the meeting where the meeting will be, what time the meeting will be, time, location, and date, You don't have to do more, you don't have to do anything really, but we do recommend posting and publishing once. All right, this is the annual meet, this is where the electors are coming in. Repeating the document numbers, yes. For the special town board meeting is TM 2100. The regular annual meeting is TM 6000. All right. Now, the last one is if you have to take and hold a special town meeting of the electors, and that is TM 2000. Again, that's TM 2000. That stands for Town Meeting 2000 is just the number. When are you gonna use a special town meeting? Well, that's if an emergency comes along. Sometimes after an event where FEMA money is going to be involved, they have to change the levy. You're going to call a special town meeting and you're going to follow what document TM 2000 says, because it's got a step-by-step process. The other times that you're going to have special town meetings is if you've got to vacate a road. There's a document on road vacations in there too, because a road vacation has some very specific steps, very specific postings and publishings. Or if you're going to add a new road that's not with a plat, you also are going to need a special town meeting. So special town meetings, make sure and get TM 2000 and go through it step by step. All right, because there's a larger number at the continuation meeting, we will need to do a virtual meeting. Okay, you didn't mention the virtual meeting part, and I'm sorry I didn't think of it. I should with COVID, but all of us are still learning all the COVID stuff. All right, notice published as well as posted. I would go overboard here. With all of the things going on, you want to make sure, and any publication, any notice you post, and it has to do with COVID, there's a couple of things. Do anything. Put it more places if you can post more places. Make sure it's on your website if you've got one. Publish it. If you have a way to send stuff out to the township residents, now that's that part's all optional because you only have to post it. But when you have to do a virtual meeting, one of the things I've found helpful, because I've been trying to wrangle seats, as you all know, trying to maintain social distancing is tough. I've got a notice on the front door in addition to my regular posting place. And in big letters, I've got what the call-in number is, what the codes are to get into the meeting so that they can get into the meeting virtually. You're going to do the best you can. Document this stuff because you can use your CARES money to pay for those extra publishings, all right? Because this wasn't planned. None of this was planned. Does that make sense? And if I'm not answering your question correctly, please let me know. But there we go on that one. All right, so next up is keep in mind your publishing posting does matter. I'm trying to get my slides to advanced here. Many of the special town board meetings, that's when the supervisors are voting, they only need to be posted with an agenda, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Only certain types of special meetings are going to need to be published as well. We're going to talk about those too. We're going to discuss which ones they are later. When the town residents are voting, just like we just talked about with a continuation of an annual meeting, the best practice is to post and publish all meetings. Requirement is you've already met that if you've given time, date, and location. Minimally, at least post. Publish is still best practice. You're going to see guidelines based on population and location. For a few instances where publishing can be omitted if other things are followed, they're few and far between, so I don't discuss a whole lot of them here. If you have a township of less than 50 people, you're going to be one who's going to want to look into those. Special meeting agendas. That's one of the big questions we get. What do I put on it? I'm a new clerk. I don't know. This is a really tricky thing. You're going to ask your supervisors for help because you want to be somewhat vague but clear enough to make it obvious that if somebody wants to be at this special meeting, they know what the topic is. So saying gravel road 72 and current gravel road maintenance of other gravel roads, that's really specific. It talks about the road with a problem, but it also opens the door so that supervisors can talk about other gravel road maintenance. If you've been a clerk for more than a month or even 2, you're going to know that when they talk about roads, they never keep it to just one. All right, they always kind of expand. So if I know it's a road issue, I always add something like this gravel road and this other road maintenance, or trimming trees and trimming trees throughout the township. You put your real specific first, and then you add a little bit so that they have some room. But keep in mind, they cannot go beyond what's on this agenda when it's a special meeting. This is one of those times as a clerk, you're going to look at them and say, you can't talk about that. You have to stop because it wasn't posted. All right. So you want to be very, very specific in these agendas. And yes, this recording will be available afterwards. So if you can't write as fast as I can talk, don't worry, you can listen to it again. Okay, so moving forward, a sample special meeting agenda, I just put that on the screen. Some other topics that are going to require publishing and posting. Here's a big one. Ordinances, assessments, and roads. I get asked this more often than anything. How long do I have to post these? Or how long do I have to publish them? Well, you're going to have your township attorney helping you on some of these. Anytime you have an assessment, you want a township attorney helping. Ordinances, most of them are a 14-day notice. Roads, it depends on what's happening. They're anywhere from 14 to 60 days. You see, you want to take and review every new thing that you have to post or publish. You're going to get really good at going through your manual to find out how long it is, or asking an attorney, hey, what's the statutory requirement? I wish there was one rule, but there isn't. Anytime you've got to do something out of the ordinary, take the time to find out, and then in your book, write it down so you know it for next time. All of these, again, that's why I put this notice in here. Everything's good to get your attorney's assistance because you don't want to miss something. I have had one time where I missed a date and I was so nervous. I had just started, had not been a clerk very long. All of a sudden, somebody's in a meeting. It was a public hearing. And they said, I got this notice only 9 days ahead of time. And they were getting mad at me. Thank goodness the attorney was in the room. And he said, good luck fighting it with a judge because you have the notice. What did that tell me? One, these dates are required, but as long as they get the notice in enough time to get to the meeting, it was okay. So even if you notice, oh, I should have sent it yesterday, get it mailed out that day. All right. Now, if it's going to be more than 1 day different, you're going to want to check with your attorney to find out the best advice. All right. Regular town board meetings. We're going to move forward. Pretty simple. They occur monthly, sometimes twice a month. Town supervisors are the only standard voting members. They make the decisions, and you keep a list of the dates posted by the door. Here's a sample of it. I use Lilac Township. You list out your 12 meetings, all right? Now that one posting location that's required is designated by the township residents at the annual meeting. Best practice is 3, but some of us don't have 3. We have one good one, maybe a secondary one, and that's it. You're going to go with what you've got. Regular meetings should stay posted at all times. What's that mean? It means, yeah, as clerk, you're going to have to go by every now and then, make sure it's still there. If it's not, put another one up. Some meetings are always special, and you're going to have to publish as well as post. The first one that comes to mind is the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. All right. Now, if your township doesn't do this, you don't have to worry about this one. But by and large, Local Board of Appeal and Equalization, the annual town meeting, and special town meetings, that's where the electors are coming in. All right. Those always need to be posted. So let's talk about some special meetings and their requirements. Special town board meeting. I just used the tracks because this is the one that we all use. We all need to know this one. As supervisors take action, there can be any number of reasons for calling a meeting. There is no set thing that has to do it, but you've got this 5-day posting along with the agenda. If you're into reading statutes, you'll read it says 3. It actually means 5. We'll talk about that in a minute. You must take minutes. Well, if it's not you, somebody must take minutes. And here's the key. Anybody who's asked for notification of meetings, you need to send it to them. These days, if you can use email, that is definitely the way to do it. So when I said 3 equals 5, exactly what am I talking about? Excuse me. Well, you're going to use 5 fingers, all right? I just realized I have a background that may not work so well. But you can count the day that you post the meeting. Start at your thumb. You add 3 days for the posting because you can't count the day you post. And then the last, your pinky is going to be the day that you have the meeting. As I look, I don't know if you could see that or not, but hopefully you understand what I mean. So Tuesday, they decide we need to have a meeting as soon as possible. So we're going to count. We can't count Tuesday, but we can post it. We've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The first day we can have the meeting is Saturday. All right. Now, with Saturdays and Sundays, excuse me, you cannot count a Sunday. You can have a meeting on a Sunday, but you can't count Sunday in that 3-day part. So the 3 days are not to be Sundays or holidays. So when it comes to special town board meetings, which we just did, I didn't keep up. Giving notice to people who request the meeting. How do we do that? There is a sample form in your packet. You want to make sure and tell them this is good for 1 year. Make them have to tell you when to notify them again. Let them know if their phone changes, their email changes, something like that. They're responsible to let you know because you don't want to have to get all these things back in the mail and figure out how to do it, how to send out notices again. Let's move forward to the local Board of Appeal of Equalization. That meets 1 time per year. What's that have to do with? Property taxes. Okay, this one gets published and posted 14 days prior. The notice of your date comes from your county assessor, usually by February 15th each year. These meetings are supposed to take place between April 1 and May 31, and at least 1 trained supervisor has to be present. A lot of times I get the question, can a clerk take the training and do this? No, the clerk may not. And in your area, you're going to want to check because sometimes on this local Board of Appeal of Equalization, the clerks take minutes. Other times the county will send somebody. I don't know for your county how it works. In my county, the clerk has to be present. So once that date comes out to you in February, verify with the town board if they're going to be there. Keep in mind also, once that date comes out, some county units are doing the publication for you. So just because I say it's got to be done, that's true, but as clerk, you need to make sure it gets done. Now, if your county unit is publishing the date instead of you, that's okay. You just need a copy of the affidavit that comes from the publication, or you need to just cut it out of the newspaper so you can show them, hey, yeah, it was done. Everything's good. All right. Okay, road tours. Those are literally looking at the roads for anybody who's a new clerk. You go out and you look at them and they talk about the pavement. They talk about all sorts of stuff. Keep in mind for road tours, there's no need to post it if you have staff who are going to go out and look at these roads. But if you don't have staff and the supervisors are going to go do it, make sure it gets posted. Best practice is publish as well, but post it. No decisions are to be made while the supervisors are out looking at the roads. No work is supposed to be done. It's only for viewing. And then at the next meeting, that's when they're going to make all their decisions. How often do these happen? Usually at least once a year. Some townships do them once in the spring and once in the fall. Does the clerk have to go on this road tour? Maybe. If you are an elected clerk, nope, you don't have to. If you are an appointed clerk, which means the position is appointed, yep, you may have to go on these road tours. They're actually kind of fun. It gives you a chance to look around the township, especially if you didn't grow up there. You can kind of get the hang of where the different roads are, what they look like, whose house is where, all of that. Again, publishing is optional, but it is recommended. Keep in mind also safety first. My first year, I wasn't even thinking, and I took pictures of the supervisors standing in the roads without little safety vests on. Don't do that, all right? So if you're gonna take pictures of the supervisors out on the road tour, make sure they got their little vests on. So next up is posting and publishing for a regular town board meeting. We're gonna pause just a second, see if this is a road tour. Oh, I got it, okay. So let's close this and go back. Some meetings are only posted and published if they're not going to be held within the regular town board meeting. We call something reorganizational meeting. That's a list of decisions that have to be made, reviewed every single year. Well, if it's going to happen at a regular town board meeting, there's no reason to take and post or to publish or post it. You can. It's perfectly allowed, but you don't have to. And the same with the Board of Audit. The Board of Audit is a statutory duty of the board, and it's only if it's not going to be held at a regular town board meeting that it has to be posted or published. I am going to talk a little bit about the Board of Audit because there's a lot of people who get Board of Audit confused with other things. We're only going to talk mainly about the posting and the publishing. I'll give you a little bit of detail, but due to time constraints, we're not going to cover the whole Board of Audit here. So when do you hold a Board of Audit and what are you going to do? The Board of Audit usually gets held after December 31 or whenever your last town board meeting in December is. That's when the clerk and treasurer are going to have their look at their books. So the clerk and treasurer need to get their books balanced. Usually you're going to meet outside that meeting to do this. The budget reports are assembled if you're doing budget reports. If you're going to hold the Board of Audit at a regular meeting, you just, in the minutes, are going to write Board of Audit then took place, and you're going to go at it from there. Now, if the Board of Audit is 1 hour before the regular month of meeting, yes, you do have to post that, all right? Make sure you post it 10 days ahead of time for the Board of Audit. That's different than our 5-day meeting, 5-day notice. Board of Audit is a 10-day one. The next thing you want to keep in mind, Board of Audit is also where the town board is going to figure out the levy that they're going to recommend. And then finally, that comes before the annual meeting. It has to be at least a week prior to the annual meeting. That's the one that you've got to be real careful of. You can't wait till the day of the annual meeting. You have to be at least a week ahead of the annual meeting. It is statute 366.20. I put that in here so that when you do print these out, you can look up the statute. It gives you a list of everything. Like I already mentioned, 1 week before the annual meeting, best practice is to post as well as publish. All right, you don't want your town residents thinking you're trying to hide information. This is one of those meetings you want to be as transparent as possible. So what exactly is the Board of Audit? Since this is designed for new clerks, basically this is when the board is going to look at the financial records that the clerk and the treasurer keep. The clerk has one key duty on here. You have got to provide a statement from the county treasurer or the auditor treasurer, whichever you have, of the money that the town treasurer received. All accounts and claims and demands that have then been filed with you. Well, this is a whole lot of stuff. What's that actually means? It means any money that came from the county. You can use an Excel spreadsheet, a piece of paper, just write down the money that came in, what it was for, and total it up. Now, if you're on CTAS, you can just pull the report from there. If you're not using CTAS, it's okay. How much money did the county send the township and what was it for? You also have to have the claims and any other demands that have been filed with the township. Anything that you've signed as clerk, you're supposed to bring to that meeting. Usually the clerk and the treasurer meet ahead of this and review the books for accuracy. This isn't a big deal. If you're doing your stuff monthly, it really isn't a big deal. Now, one clarification. In the annual meeting document on top of page 3, the annual meeting document is TM 6000. Top of page 3, there's a typo. The $2,500 or more for the GAAP audit should say and revenues of $963,000. That amount is adjusted yearly for inflation. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but the state auditor publishes that each year. So a couple other things with preparing for the Board of Audit. If you are using CTAS, what do you bring? Your disbursement register or ledger, your receipts register or ledger, your Schedule 1, or whatever you have to show fund balances, and how do you tell your CTAS printouts apart? Here's a standard heading right here on this screen. Both the clerk and treasurer screens are going to look like this. Both their printouts will. So there's a very simple solution. You go into admin, click the admin icon, and add the word clerk or treasurer to the one who does not submit the reports to the state, because only one of you has to submit reports. So whoever does not have to, add the word clerk or treasurer, because then what happens, see, it's just very simple. We're not doing anything big. Hit save in the lower right-hand corner. All of a sudden it says Lilac Township Clerk then in my example. And then the other one just says Lilac Township. So you can tell who printed which record. I know this seems really small, but this is a huge deal when you've got 2 sheets of white paper in front of you. One says, and they both say the same thing. All right. Ideally, you're matching, and this is a good thing, but you'd like to know which person submitted which record. Another hint for the Board of Audit, if you've got the availability, use different color pieces of paper. One of them print white, one of them print yellow. It's a pretty simple one, but it works. A couple other things on preparing the Board of Audit. If you're doing it by hand, you provide a list of the money received, a list of the bill paid, and any other fiscal data on hand. You still have to provide fund balances, and the treasurer is going to provide the complete record, and the board's going to compare everything with the bank statements. Do the clerk and treasurer agree on the bank balance? Keep in mind, Board of Audit is not the same as an outside audit. They are two very different things, all right? That's all I'm going to cover on the Board of Audit. We could go on with this in a little more detail quite often, quite a bit, but we're not going to today. Well, I want to hit on the annual meeting. This training for the clerk basics is very basic. We want you to know as much as possible about as many things so that you at least know what it is that you need to figure out, all right? Trying to get you as much data as we can. So with the annual meeting, your annual meeting notice versus the annual election notice are two very different things, okay? All townships hold their annual meeting the second Tuesday in March. Doesn't matter when your elections are, all of us, second Tuesday in March is Township Day in Minnesota. And notice must be provided. There is no exception to that. Only townships with March elections are going to include the extra notice of election information. And yes, you can combine notices when possible to save money. Notices can be combined to save money, which I need to click a little faster here, it looks like. If the Board of Audit is 1 hour before the regular meeting, do you have to post it? Yes, you do. All right. Board of Audit also has to be published if you're going to hold it outside the regular meeting. What is a notice? A notice is simply a posting or a publishing. And the reason I put notice instead of one or the other is because small townships outside the 11 county metro area may be able to dispense with published notice of the annual meeting. There's some other qualifications there. That's why I put notice instead of posting and publishing. Excuse me. All righty. So I'm getting used to clicking buttons at a different organization here. Okay, so in general, all townships have to post and publish, unless of course you're one of the small ones where the voters have said, no, we're not going to. And the town board says that as well. And the voters still agree after the first time it's happened, it usually gets changed back to publishing and posting. Unless the town board has directed to post notice only, I need to click faster. Best practice is still publish and post. Keep in mind, when you're doing the annual meeting notice, you have got to include a bad weather date. The bad weather date is the Tuesday following the second Tuesday, so the third Tuesday in March, okay? The 11 county metro, I have a slide coming up and I will show you where those are. So if you've got an annual March township election, the notice that you're going to publish and post there, you're going to refer back to the calendars for the dates, but there are two required ones for the 11 county metro area that are optional for non-metro towns. We still recommend you publish at least one. Everybody must post, but we recommend publication of at least one. If you're not in the 11 county metro area, publishing is optional again, but it's best practice. The last date for the second notice is in the calendar. I didn't put the dates in here because I really want you to use your MAC calendar or your Secretary of State calendar to pull those dates. Township election notices are not mandatory for non-metro towns. This was something I learned when putting this together because I always thought everybody had to post and publish these. I'm in a metro area, so I have to do all these notices, publishing, posting, the whole 9 yards. However, if you're not in a metro area, this is where if you're in a small township, you may not need to post, you may not need to send an election notice, but it is highly recommended that you do. Those who don't, that's when you get into the areas where people think you're trying to hide something or you're not being fully truthful. Keep in mind, and I don't care how big your township is, this is required for all of us, the last day of filing, whether it's a November election, whether it's a March election, you have to be open from 1 to 5 p.m. So like this year, our primary's coming up August 11th. from 1 to 5 p.m., the clerk needs to be in their office available for filing if you've got a November election or if you have a hospital district in your area. Include your bad weather date. I know I put that on here a lot, but this is Minnesota and March can get snowy. I have talked to clerks. Many of you know Lori. She's had to move her election one time before. So you want to make sure that you've got your bad weather date in the calendar. Here's a picture of your 11 county metro area. Sherburne, Isanti, Anoka, Chisago, Washington, Ramsey, Hennepin, Scott, Dakota, Carver, and Wright counties. Those are the 11 metro counties. All right. So when we talk about the metro area, if you're not in those 11 counties, you don't have to follow metro area publishing rules. So your annual meeting preparation, I'm going to go really quick through this too. TM 6000, you're going to see page 3. That's where things are going to start. That's also where you're going to review if you have to have a gap audit performed for your township that year. 5 days before the annual meeting, the written treasurer's report is due to the clerk. Half hour before the meeting, the clerk's going to post the treasurer's report. Now, what's the treasurer's report supposed to look like? That's not up to the clerk. That's up to the treasurer. Whatever the treasurer gives you as the treasurer's report, that's what you post ahead of the annual meeting. You also want to put out a sign-in sheet because only the township residents can vote. This is one of those more difficult jobs if you didn't grow up in the township and you don't know who people are. You've got to make sure they live in your township, especially if you're in some of the lakes area townships. There's people who own land there, but they don't live there. They can come to the meeting, they can give comment, but they can't vote on anything. They don't get a vote on taxes. So you need to come up with a system to help you determine who can or cannot vote. If you have an election that day, ask a couple of election judges to say, you're going to have your roster. They can look it up and they can tell if these people live here or not. Now, in your annual meeting minutes, normally the clerk is going to take the minutes, and you need to make sure, this is one difference from regular town board minutes. Any orders or directions made, you want to make sure you've got who's making the motion. You also want to note the time, because when you're doing an annual meeting, you get 1/2 hour for the people to reconsider a vote. So let's say that they voted on the levy and then they decided that, oh, you know what, we want to change it and it's only been 20 minutes. They can. That's a special thing in the laws about the minutes for the annual meeting and the votes at the annual meeting. Again, only township residents can vote at the annual meeting. Some township clerks will use little cards. Some of them will use all sorts of ways to sign in, whatever works for you. There's no one right way. Whatever business is necessary to discuss is what goes on the agenda. You got to vote on the levy. Please do not forget that part. If there's one thing you take from the annual meeting is remember to vote on your levy, because if you don't, then you're going to get yourself into needing to have a special town meeting. There's always somebody who does, and it's a pain because it takes a 2-week publication and all that. It's not a pain. It's just a lot of extra steps for forgetting to call a vote. You're going to set the time, date, and place of next year's annual meeting while you're at the annual meeting. This is where we're going to talk about if you're going to recess this annual meeting, set the time, date, and place of where it's going to be reheld for the recess. And that way you don't have to publish and post. We recommend you do, but it's not required. Then the minutes need to be typed and signed within 2 days of the meeting. That is different than a regular town board meeting, all right? That's just the requirement. That's in statute. So a couple common questions. I wanted to make sure we hit these. Do the clerk and treasurer get paid? I have no idea. Your town board decides that. Hopefully you've decided that before the annual meeting. The people at the annual meeting are not who decide that. The town board is. How about, do the supervisors get paid for attending? Well, again, that's up to them. That's not up to the clerk or treasurer. That's not up to the residents of the township. That is up to the board, and they should have decided that before the annual meeting. So right now, especially for those that are new, if you haven't done what we call a reorganizational meeting, and I know this is really unfair to do to you because we haven't had the trainings, you may not have all the materials, but if you'll email one of us trainers or the MAT office, we will get you what all goes in a reorganizational meeting. I think it was in the last magazine as well. If you haven't had that meeting, you may not know if these people get paid. That's when this stuff should be discussed, is at your reorganizational meeting. How about the moderator? Do they get paid? Well, again, that's up to the town board. Do you know what our biggest questions that trainers get after the annual meeting are? And if after the levy stuff is, who do I pay? Well, we can't tell you. You need to make sure that those things are listed in the minutes as well. A couple common questions. We forgot to vote on the levy. I told you about that. You're going to have to call a special town meeting. The town voters want to give money to something the board disagrees with. That's going to be a whole other class talking about finances. The voters zeroed our levy. What do? You're going to have a special town meeting. I'm going to speed up just a little bit because I just looked at the time. All right, one of the bright ideas at the annual meeting, use the map magazine and last year's agenda when you're creating it for this year. Do you have electronic files? Take and use a system there to help you track things. You want to make sure with your annual meeting you get everything noted that you need for that meeting. Now, property taxes. This is when we're going to talk about the levy for just a minute, because as new clerks, you may or may not realize what the levy is. All right. So the levy is the money the township is going to receive. It comes through your county auditor. You get the money in June. You may get another portion in July, again in the fall, and again in January. That money is based solely on property taxes. All right. Now, with that levy, the maximum amount of the levy is set at the annual meeting in March by the residents of the township. This is the one level of government, the people who live here set how much taxation they're going to allow the township to do. The board has to ratify that levy at the next regular board meeting. That just means make a motion that tells what each fund is going to levy and pass that motion. That way the clerk knows when it comes to September and you have to ratify to the county auditor, you know what the amounts are. And the levy can be changed by calling another town meeting. Now, when we talk about funds, this is a real brief overview. General fund can be used to pay anything. Road and bridge fund is for road and bridge expenses. Fire fund is another common one. That's for fire expenses. Your township may have 3, but your money is divided into funds. You must have at least a general and a road and bridge fund. We recommend a fire fund, and if you have other things, you may have other funds, all right? But your levy is just the imposition of taxes, and it's voted on at the annual meeting. The levy certification, that's something the clerk sends into the county auditor by September 30th of each year. Your county auditor may have a special piece of paper that they want you to fill out, a form, but if they don't, it's just going to be a piece of paper that shows general fund is X amount, road and bridge is X amount, and the total of the levy. Now, I've got several questions here. You would will the recording, I hit the wrong button. Yes, these recordings will be available after this presentation. Let's see, it is true the annual meeting can be suspended until September. That is correct. So one comment is, can the annual meeting be suspended until September to pass the levy and notify the county? Yes, it may, but keep in mind you need to have a board meeting after that annual meeting so the town board supervisors can set that levy. So just get that into your timing as well. And why do we wait so long after the annual meeting to tell the county what our levy is? Well, this one's kind of odd, but things happen during the year. A lot of townships will hold they will recess their annual meeting and hold it in August or September to set the final levy because they don't know what expenses are going to happen, or they're in an area where they suspect something big may happen and they may need to change the levy. That is one reason to suspend it. You can tell the county right away, but you're not required to tell them until September 30th. How you do it is going to be up to your county, all right? Okay, so I think that's got me caught back up there. Now, if you do not certify your levy to the county auditor is going to follow statutory guidelines, and I think there is a set amount they're supposed to use based on the previous levy that they had certified. It's really a bad idea to let the county do this because they don't know what your expenses are. They don't know what you're expecting. So make sure as clerk, you are taking the initiative and certifying that levy to the county auditor. All right. I can't stress that enough. I've talked to too many townships who nobody knows what their levy is. It's important you know what your levy is and understand it. Again, the general fund can be used to pay anything. Your road and bridge fund is a restricted fund, can only be used to pay for road and bridge expenses. Your gas tax kind of falls in there. It's money that can be spent a very specific way. Anybody who's gotten any of this CARES money, that is a restricted fund. We can only use it to pay for COVID-19 expenses. We've got to document it. The MAT office has been having phone calls once a week on this, so make sure you know if the money you're using is restricted or can be used anywhere. Now, what's the purpose of the board ratifying the levy? They can't change it. Yes, they can. The board cannot raise the levy, but they can lower the levy. So it's real important to get the board to ratify it. Every now and then, I don't know when this would ever happen, but a possibility would be a township comes in and says, we want our levy to be $500,000 a year, $300,000 for road and bridge, $200,000 for the general fund, whatever they say. And the town board looks and decides, well, first of all, we don't need that much money, and the town board may set the levy down at $50,000 instead of $500,000. That's why they need to make sure and ratify that levy. I do know, I said I didn't know of that. Actually, I'm thinking I do know of one township that did that. They had enough surplus, they actually decreased the levy from what the voters said that they wanted it to be because they knew they had the surplus funds. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. Okay, your reorganizational meeting, I'm just going to say that is a list of stuff that needs to be done each year. I'm kind of going to skip through this slide. Real briefly, the manual's got a great reference. If you don't have a town manual, call Sherry at the MAT office. She'll send it to you and bill the township, all right? They're only 10 bucks. If we recommend get them every 3 to 5 years, okay? They're purple, orange, they're all sorts of colors. I don't remember the current color. If anybody does, feel free to type it in the Q&A and I'll announce it. Things that are done at the reorganizational part of the meeting. The chair, vice chair are set, road supervisors set, parks and cemetery, do you have people who serve on those boards? The verifying that the records have moved from the new clerk to the new treasurer, from the old clerk to the new clerk, or from the old treasurer to the new treasurer. All that is stuff that gets done at the reorganizational part of the meeting. You verify the meeting schedule. You take and review any policies. You verify financial reporting is on track because financial reports are due in March, all right? Your reorganizational, if you do not hold it in conjunction with a regular meeting, you have to post it 5 days prior with a detailed agenda, okay? Just like any other special meeting, you'd post it 5 days ahead of time. Some townships find it more useful to break up all these different items that they got to do each year, and they just do a couple here, a couple there, and that's okay too. Just keep track that you've gotten them done for the year. Publishing's optional. One bright idea, if you're moving it out all over the year, make sure and write it in your notebook like that, okay? Let's move really quick here through a special town meeting, and I'm going to try and leave approximately 10 minutes for any questions. The special town meeting is when you call the voters in at a different time, all right? That's not a recessed town meeting. A recessed town meeting is a different thing. This is a special town meeting. When they've got to come in, usually it has to do with a road, or something bad happened and you had closed or adjourned your annual meeting and now they have to do some more voting. Document TM 2000 is in the MAT Information Library. There are statutes that detail the requirements for calling this meeting. It needs a 10-day published notice of the time, date, location, and purpose. This one, it doesn't matter how big your township is. If you're calling a special town meeting, it must be published as well as posted. All right? So that is posting and publishing as quickly as I can go through it. I will answer some questions. A couple things I want to highlight. If I don't see any questions come in, I do have all sorts of stuff we can run over. But with your town meeting location, your main town posting location, a lot of townships say, you know, we don't have the box, we don't have a town hall, everybody meets at the clerk's house. If you're meeting at the clerk's house, then the town board can spend some money and put a sign at the end of the clerk's lane, unless they want it on the clerk's front porch window or whatever, and use plastic sheet protectors. Put your notice in there and stick it up. You know, if you put the sheet protectors upside down, they're going to stay dry and you're going to be okay. All right. I don't know if there have been any questions coming on chat, Joseph. If there have, let me know. I don't see that screen where I'm at. That's why the Q&A box is important.
Yeah, so far we haven't received any questions in the chat box.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I do want to cover a couple more things on the Board of Audit if there are no questions on other things. When you are going through your Board of Audit, I cannot emphasize enough, you have got to do fund accounting. I talk to a lot of people, well, we just do cash accounting. Cash accounting is the type of accounting all of us do. Fund accounting means you keep track of that general fund, the road and bridge fund, and how much you're spending of those monies, okay? Because you cannot, when you're using different monies, you have to make sure in township you're spending your money out of the right fund, especially now that a lot of us have this CARES funding we've got to deal with. If you've got the CARES funding, set up another 200 level fund if you're using CTAS. If you're not using CTAS, just call it CARES funding, and you have got to be sure to document those expenses. If you were on the call with the Minnesota Department of Revenue, the federal government has 2 or 3 years where they may come in to audit us. We don't know, all right? So over documentation when it comes to this money. I know this is an odd time for those who are just starting. If you have questions, we do have those MAT phone calls on Tuesdays. Those are recorded as well. But with these CARES funds, it's very important to make sure you are documenting well, because those funds are things that were not necessary before the beginning of this year. I mean, none of us kept hand sanitizer on hand the way we seem to now, or masks, or anything else, or worried about social distancing. Now that we're doing that, those weren't planned in our budget, so those expenses can be used there. When we think about our elections, if we need PPE for our election judges, those are some more things that are going to come out of the CARES fund. Instead of coming out of our general fund, we're going to take them out of that fund of money. All right. So it's very, very important that you do your fund accounting, even if you do it by hand. And if you do it by hand and you're not sure how, on the Office of the State Auditor's website, if you go to the CTAS, go into the tab that talks about CTAS, so it's Office of the State Auditor, go to the 4 local officials, go down to the one that says CTAS, or Small City and Town Accounting System. When you get to that page, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to find the accounting manual for towns, all right? When you find that accounting manual, all of the forms that you need are going to be in that manual. You can even photocopy them if you wanted, and it's to do a manual fund accounting system. It shows you the forms they want to see, and it shows them to you in the format they would really like to see. So I've got someone mentioned they created a new fund and realized they've had some expenditures. They're going to need to change the object code on those, like the expenditures for virtual meetings. Okay, I am going to answer this one live. If you've got your new fund created, if you didn't get the list from the state auditor or from me or from one of the other trainers, they have a specific revenue account they want you to use. You're not going to change the object codes on the expenses that have already happened. You're going to change the fund. So let's say you have 2 hours worth of work learning about the CARES fund. All right. You're going to go into whatever disbursement is your payroll, or this is probably the worst example. So let's just pick 2 hours of an employee of somebody else doing some stuff for the township on CARES funding, and they worked road and bridge and they took a CARES class. Well, the road and bridge work is going to stay under Fund 201. The CARES stuff is going to go under whatever CARES fund is. You're going to use your same old account numbers when possible, unless they fit into there's 5 new account numbers the state just gave us. Let me see if I can see them from here. Hang on. And with those funds, with those accounts, we want to make sure we use them correctly. So, did the CARES notice state you'd get 25 per registered voter? Okay, I'll answer that one in just a second. With the CARES money, 33180 is the account you are supposed to use. Federal grants, CARES. All right. Now they've given us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more account numbers. Email me and I'll just send them out to you because I don't want to try and mix up account numbers right now. There is a special one for election expenses, and we're all going to have those if we're meeting in person. The next question, CARES notice from the state of Minnesota stated we could get 25 per registered voter. The county contacted a clerk and noted the portion of the CARES funding would be over 700, and you have over 700 registered. I'll tell you what, can you email me, Maria, on that one? I don't want to, I need you to email me because I've got the person's name and number, and I can send you her email, all right? I don't know who else to contact, but I do have a name from the state in the COVID office, and they could answer that question for you. Let's see. I'm still not used to screen changing, but with your CARES money, you do want to make sure that you use the right account numbers and your correct funds, okay? Let's move through here because one of the things I did want to talk about on the reorganizational meeting, since I kind of skipped by it really quick. If you have November elections, when are you going to do your reorganizational meeting? That usually comes in January, all right, at the first regular board meeting. Those of us with March elections, it might be April. It all depends on when our elections were. But if you have November elections, often your reorganizational meeting is done in January, okay? Consistency is really a good choice. I wrote that on here because once you get it into your clerk calendar and you've been doing these things every single year, we do a lot of the same stuff every single year. We know we've got to have our election judges appointed for the August primary in July. We've got to have the ones appointed for the November election in October. We know that we've got to turn in our financials the end of March. You know, we do things in a pattern. We do things, the date may change, but we always know this is pretty much always going to happen in March. That's when our finances are going to be due. So keeping a book, and even if you're just scribbling it by hand, you can do it with a computer. I don't care how fancy you get. You want to make sure and maintain that book in a good order so you can just look, oh, January, this is what I got to do. One note on the handouts for this class. I did include postings and publishing samples for all of the different types of meetings that we talked about here. I even included one on the AutoMark. I don't know how many townships are still using AutoMark, and maybe a lot of you are, and I just don't know that. I did include a sample of the AutoMark testing, sample of regular meeting postings. There's also a resolution to designate Columbus Day as an official day or a holiday. If your township has not done that, and if you're new, this is a great time to ask the board, hey, do we meet on Columbus Day? Do we consider that second Monday in October a regular work day, or is that a holiday? The same with the Friday after Thanksgiving. But there's a sample of that in the handouts. And then there's a sample for your Board of Audit of the information you need. There's also one page that talks about minutes for regular, special, emergency, recessed, and closed meetings. I know we're about done, so I want to go real quick. Look at that. Keep in mind, you're always going to need minutes. I get more into that in the other sessions. Okay? So 6 o'clock's our time, right? Or is
That's
my
correct,
clock off?
Lucinda. 6
All
o'clock.
right. Well, thank you all very much. And if you have any questions, feel free to email or call.
All right, thank you, Lucinda. And to our attendees, I will be sending a copy of today's presentation as a recording link. It'll be sent to your email addresses on file. I'll be expecting that recording link by tomorrow morning. In addition, you can go ahead and download today's presentation materials by clicking that blue hyperlink in the chat box. In the next few seconds, it'll redirect you to a downloadable folder with some files. And other than that, we appreciate your time today and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.